Bonjour. Bonjour. It's great to wake up at 6 o'clock and leave Toronto and to be with you, the city with the leading percentage of immigrant entrepreneurship. Did you know that? Of the 35 CMAs, the highest rates of immigrant self-employment in 2012 were in Peterborough. 36%, Kelowna 29%, St. Catharines, Niagara area 24%, Kingston 23%, Hamilton 22%, and Victoria, BC 22%. So you see, entrepreneurship is alive and well, and the majority of immigrant entrepreneurs who have joined you in 2012 is something not to be sneezed at. I was very pleased that we got here in time to hear a few of the speakers, to hear your question and answer, and also to hear Bharati's presentation, because I too am an immigrant woman, and I want to say to the New Canadian Centre, as you list the number of countries from which immigrants come, I was looking for my country on there, my country of birth, and it's not there. Why aren't Grenadians coming to Peterborough? So that's going to be my next piece of research. Head to Peterborough, immigrants, newcomers. It is a welcoming place. I was also very pleased to be welcomed and to say hello to so many of you who have been in the field, as it were, for many, many years. I came here in 1960 as on what was called at the time the Canada Caribbean Domestic Scheme. So I had to sign up that I will work in the home of a Canadian family for 1 year, do domestic work, and at the end of that time I will get landed immigrant status. And this was, very seriously, was Canada's attempt to help the countries of the Caribbean with the youth and the young people, with the unemployment of young people in their various regions. They could not, under all kinds of constitutional and other kind of rules, say we'll take young people, but this was a way around the issue. Come, work, we'll give you that experience. And at the time, and I grew up at a time when the favored ones for post-secondary education were boys, and all the young men in my family were being sent away to England, to UK, to different places, and as a young woman, I was looking for my place to go without the necessary family support because there was no money to do such things. So I grabbed at that as an opportunity. I have no sad story to tell about the 9 months that I spent with a Canadian family looking after their baby. And I have no sad stories to tell about that experience because I looked at it as an opportunity and a learning experience for me. But I'm right on the page with you because my first buck against the system was when I showed up with an Oxford and Cambridge overseas school certificate, A-levels, those of you who know about these things, and I was told, and I was making application for Teachers College, and I was told that I had to go back to grade 13, and I stood my ground, and I think I've been standing my ground since then. So I'm very pleased to be with you. I'm very pleased that you're having this frank discussion. I have not been in too many circles where people are willing to say, what do we do with these long names of individuals? I know that Eastern European and other people have told stories about when they came. The immigration officer or the custom person or the teacher at the first school they entered, etc., said, your name is too long, would you mind abbreviating and shortening that name? And a lot of people tell you that that's not really their name as it was, but that was the name that the teacher shortened it to. So I was pleased this morning to hear someone ask a question upright, and also to be directed by Madam Seti, to that study, What's in a Name, because that again is very significant, especially for employers. There are some things that are helping us to do this, not because we willfully want to do this, but I noticed recently the whole issue of computers. There are too many letters in the name to fit into the computer boxes, and therefore they cut some off simply because technology is kind of forcing the question. But again, a name, what's in a name? A name is your name, a name is a family name, a name is a legacy and part of your heritage. And so we know that in today's day and age that we don't ask people to do that unless, as was pointed out, that people willingly do this. The question that was not answered, I thought, was the one around picture on the resume. And I'm not too sure that I would say yes, picture on the resume, because we're moving now to a situation where we give people numbers. And I know, for example, in the work I do, one of the regulatory bodies give you a number when you apply, and then you can trace your application as it goes through by the number, and therefore you take out the subjectivity of whether that person is being, file is being laid on the table because of their race or their place of origin or their cultural whatever. So again, as we work towards ensuring that we do not put subjective things in our processes, we look at ways in which we can do things better. So I'm not too sure that a picture in the resume is the desirable. And I remember one of the very first jobs that I applied for, that was something I could do almost with my eyes closed. I was told that I was not the right fit for that company. And it's interesting how life does all kinds of stuff, from going for a clerical kind of job and being told you're not the right fit, to reaching the point where I've gotten to the highest place in the land as minister and as a speaker in the chair and all whatnot, and looking at the company and saying, my God, why wasn't I the right fit? Was it because I was wearing white shoes and it was after Labor Day, or that I had my cotton skirt from Grenada when the person who interviewed me came up and was, and had an expectation of what this individual who scored so highly on that little exam, that test that was given to them. So I'm not too sure the issue of the picture and the whatnot, and I'm not too sure that today we say these things. When I went back, I was told I wasn't the right fit. I think employers are not saying this anymore, right? They're using other nuanced language. And so we know that there's work to be done, and we know that things are changing and changing quite slowly. So I'm pleased to be here with you and I want to congratulate you, the conference organizers, and acknowledge SAFO's so many things have been written in books and whatever. And I was thinking the other day, I need to find out who are these people who are writing all this stuff, so I can get, what do they get in music circles? Royalties. So I can find those individuals and get the royalties on all these things that are written. But again, we know, and it has been pointed out to us as immigrants, as newcomers to the society, that we work twice as hard, that we realize the importance of making our place in the society, and this is why we left home, and these are the ambitions we hold, and we won't let things get us down. And that has been my mantra over the years. So I'm pleased to see the gathering here in Peterborough. I'm pleased to see all of you committed individuals who are willing to have the tough conversation around attracting newcomers, attracting immigrants. Because I think working together on an initiative like this and talking about having people not only come, but having people remain with us, how we attract how we retain, how we integrate. It's not one person's responsibility. It's the responsibility of the mayor and the city. It's the responsibility of the county, the warden, and the county representatives. And it's the responsibility of the police and the police chiefs and the government agencies and the community groups, the churches, the schools. It's all of our responsibility. Neighbor next door, the person, as was mentioned this morning at the grocery store, who says, hello, may I help you? And who can do the interpretation and helping. It's the responsibility of each and every one of us. And this is why it does my heart really, I'm really very pleased to be here and to see so many of you as part of this conversation. You know, and you have the material that Peterborough has a rich history of receiving others, and that prior to the arrival of the first Europeans, this region was a gathering spot for First Nations people who met here with families and leaders and exchange ideas, exchange knowledge. So it's not something that's completely new. It's just a different time, different groups, different faces, approaching different issues. So this third, I understand it's a third conference, third biennial conference, acknowledges that together we prosper. You are aware of the need to attract and retain newcomers in your communities. You know that you want to get them to stay and not head to Toronto or Ottawa. The need to integrate newcomers in order to enhance our collective economic growth and prosperity is a challenge to all communities, not just your region. The face of immigrants, as we noted and as you noted, all across this province, faces are changing. While early immigrants to Peterborough were mostly Irish and British descent, you now have newcomers from about 90 different countries. And this all came from the material that you present and the material that you have in front of you. You now have newcomers from 90 different countries that call your region home, and almost all these newcomers are younger than 45 years old, according to Statistics Canada. I was in some place not very far from here, I won't call the name, but the death record or the death numbers were higher than their birth rate, than the registration of births. So we know what's happening, right? And I'm in that category that's on the way to the other side. MCI states statistics show us that between 2008 and 2012, 48.7 new landed immigrants were in the economic class, 37% in the family class, and 8.8% refugees. We also know that many communities around Ontario are not unlike, the discussions there are not unlike the discussions that we're having today. We know the economic future of Ontario is tied to newcomers and the diversity that they bring to our communities. You are familiar with the figures. Without further immigration to Ontario, it is anticipated the working age population will begin to decline by 2014. 2014 is next year. It's estimated that there will be a shortage of 364,000 skilled workers by 2025. This is according, as I said, to the Ontario Ministry of Citizenship and Immigration. It's well known that immigrants who join us in this province prefer to settle in big cities, and you know the reasons. There are services there. There are job opportunities, they think. There are others who speak their language. They like the multicultural makeup of large urban areas. And this is a long-standing trend. In Ontario, 2012, out of 99,000 new permanent residents who joined us, over 77,000 settled in Toronto, which means that the rest of Ontario has a lot of work to do to attract newcomers. And I was very pleased to hear someone point out, what is it that small and rural areas can do to do that attracting? So it's no secret that immigrants help smaller cities, counties, villages, towns, rural Ontario to survive. Newcomers bring cultural diversity. They bring ideas, they bring energy. They take risks. They help businesses deal with shortages of staff. They can provide professional services. They can start new businesses, create jobs as entrepreneurs, thus stimulating economic growth. I was at a presentation not long ago where the presenter was showing that the farms and businesses, and especially in small areas, have no plan in terms of the future. What's the word that's used for? Succession. They have no succession. Can you imagine doing a whole session on succession planning in small areas? So that the family who owned the farm, the family who developed it over the years, got it to a certain point, have the children involved with it. The children have gone off to university and colleges and other places. The children have no interest whatsoever in coming back to the farm or to the business or to the rural area. And therefore, with no succession plan, when the old man goes and the family's business is more or less at sea and lost. And I never did give much thought to that until I sat through that presentation, succession planning in rural and other areas, so that businesses owned by the good old family business would remain in some way, or there is a way to get that business energized and modernized. Foreign trained and educated professionals in this area, for example, coming to Peterborough, can enhance the technology and manufacturing sectors and form the economic base of your city. Smaller municipalities often lack the capacity to reach out to newcomers. We heard this said here, attracting newcomers is one thing, but keeping and integrating them is another. And most important issue is integrating them into the community. Mario Lefebvre, he's a director of the Center for Municipal Studies, the Conference Board of Canada, was speaking a little while ago in a session that I attended. And he talked about, and I'll just use some of, take some excerpts from some things he said. He talked about the immigration imperative, and he talked about how Canadian cities are performing. What attracts immigrants, was his question to us. What does your community need to do to attract immigrant entrepreneurs? And he called on everybody to say, what is it that you personally are doing in your business, in your field, in your schools, in your universities, in your neighborhoods, to make sure that as you attract, there are ways in which you could retain. And he brought us the fact that almost 70% of Canada's population growth is attributable to immigration, and that the provinces show different results. He said Alberta immigrants were accounting for 34% of their population growth, compared with 100% of population growth in Manitoba. I was with the conference board and a committee of the conference board, and we were in Brandon, Manitoba. And 100% of the growth of Brandon was immigrants. But know what? There was a factory there. the maple leaf plant is there. And so they were going out, they were bringing in these workers. And sometimes I look at things from both sides and I say, great, every person who came in, brought in by the company as a job. But then you go on the other side of town, they didn't like me asking about that. It was kind of a little rude question. On the other side of town were all these Aboriginal and First Nations communities where the unemployment was very high. So let's leave that point to the side. At the municipal level, he said, the three largest urban centers are reliant on immigration for almost all of their population growth. But he says, so are some of the small centers, St. John, Winnipeg, St. Catharines. Communities that fail to attract people will face weak population growth down the road. And this will limit a community's economic potential and entrepreneurship. And then he debunked the idea that people go where the jobs are. You know, we all say this, people go where the jobs are. He says that's changing, and it will keep on changing. Given the aging of the population and the impact that this will have on the labor force, more and more businesses already choose to locate in communities where they believe they will find their labor requirements over the short, the medium, and the long term. And so as a result, he underscored the fact that a city that struggles to attract people will also struggle to attract businesses and entrepreneurs. And that will be a blow to the future of that city. And so he got into the whole issue of a strong economy to attract people. And I think this is what you're about, and I think this is what this session and your coming together is all about. How can you develop this, and how can you get out those clear messages? Because overall, the more entrepreneurs a city has, the more innovative it is. There are several good examples out there, and when I look at your annual report, and I see the wonderful stories you tell and the programs that you have, I think what you're doing can be lined up with any of the other places where really good things are happening. And so the city of Markham, which has a diverse action plan, 72% of its residents are born outside of Canada, 72%. So in other words, when you walk the streets of Markham, just about everybody you meet, has come from someplace else. And the 55% of the population come from diverse cultural and racial groups. They knew that, they had the stats, they had the numbers, and they just didn't sit back and just let it happen. And there are stories to be told there, and I can tell the story, but I think when I look at your booklet, I think a lot of the stories told there, and a lot of the successes that they've had, as they recognize the diversity of their community, and as they set out on what they call a diversity action plan, it created for them all of the opportunities to make them go from just being a region into the city of Markham, because they had the population numbers. And they did everything from looking at appointments to local boards, looking at what was happening with their youth, with their older people, race relations, etc. These are all things that I'm sure you can, if you Google the city of Markham, you'd see that program. There, I can also mention the social clubs that help the city to, that serve women and serve immigrants of all ages, Newmarket and area newcomers in the York region. And then you have in the Peel region, and again, a whole formalized approach to promote diversity. Peel region, as you know, is a sprawling community where half the population is immigrant and the largest ethnic group is East Indian. And so, as those who provide leadership in every area of the community has to recognize that something has to be done to integrate, to recognize, and to have everyone be, I would always say, I speak about this, a productive member of the community, a productive member of the society. And they've done things like writing a diversity and inclusion charter, and again getting everyone involved in this charter, which doesn't have any power as a charter, but at least it speaks to some of the things that must happen in the region in order for them to move forward. Brampton has some programs that reach out to immigrants and in a very kind of practical way, and if maybe you follow the Toronto Star, you would have seen where they did some write-up on this. They had buses or tram cars or whatever that would take people from one part of the city to the next. It's kind of like hop on and drop off, so that they show people what there is in the community as resources, and the availability to all newcomers to understand what the community is, the size of the community, the geographic extent of the community, and what there are available for newcomers. In your own area, and again, not to have you feel that nothing much is happening, you have your own Peterborough Dean Pappas, who recognized the importance of attracting new people to community, and I was reading, again, that's all listed. He organized diversity dinners and roundtable discussions to hear from those who have moved and who have invested in Peterborough. I'm citing all these as good examples of how we could get community and business and the political leadership to recognize that there is important work that we all must do. And then there are some other initiatives that's taking place where they're talking about the amount we as Canadians spend on imported vegetables. And have you seen that study? We spend about $62 million a year on vegetables that are bought by newcomers. And the question again is how can we do this in our own community? Locally grown ethno-cultural crops to meet the changing demands. And they talk about the Asian long eggplant, the Indian round eggplant, yard length beans, and Indian red carrot. I mean, lots of stuff like that these families look for in the grocery store. And after research and whatever, it can be grown right here, so that the $62 million in imported vegetables could be grown right here and sold right here, because we have the critical mass of individuals to purchase this. So, by the way, the University of Guelph is pioneering and is working in this area. So let me turn now to what I do as the Fairness Commissioner for the province of Ontario. For the years, newcomers who've joined us in this province have been looking for ways and means to integrate themselves fully into our businesses, into our communities, into our schools, into so many places, universities. And several things over the years have happened through federal programs, through provincial programs. But there was always the sense that there were groups of individuals, groups of newcomers for whom 6 weeks of that and 7 weeks of this, or some funding for that, or a bridging program for something, were not meeting the needs of specific individuals. And those were individuals who were joining us, highly qualified, who were professionals, who were experienced, and who were coming to us with their credentials who are coming to us with their professions, coming from a profession, wanting to join us, wanting to join and to return, to get back into their profession. And so by 2005, 2006, the noise around that area had gotten louder, and by 2006, legislation was passed which was called Fair Access to the Regulated Professions, because it was felt that a lot of the regulated professions, to get into many of them, there were so many hoops that individuals had to jump, too many tests, it was taking too long, that one person got an answer in a specific way and another person approaching the profession got a different answer. So the talk was about fair access, regardless of where you were educated, coming to the province of Ontario, that you should be given equal treatment, that the process must be fair, must be transparent, must be objective, must be impartial, and you must get an answer in a timely fashion. And there were lots of people who were waiting. I got my papers in and I'm waiting. It was taking, the wait was too long. And so that legislation called Fair Access to the Regulated Professions created my office, because the legislation asked for a commissioner to make sure that the legislation was implemented. And so, with $1.5 million at the time, 2007, with the legislation in hand, with the office created as an agency of the government at arm's length, I was told, go do it. So here we are, with an office, with the funds, with two supports from the government. One is support for technical support, it's called. That is for my computer system and for my telephone system. And the second support was for, what do you think? Legal. If I got my butt in trouble, the government lawyers would come and help me out. So I had legal support and I had technical support. And at the same time, I had a list of the bodies that regulate the professions. I think we've given you a pamphlet that's in your bag, and it listed the 40 bodies at the time that were identified. We know those bodies as colleges: the College of Physicians and Surgeons, the College of Teachers, the college, etc., etc. And so I started by calling them in and drilling them on their processes. Where are your applicants coming from? How long is the process taking? What kind of exams or criteria that you're asking of them? What bridging programs are there to assist them to get their qualifications, etc., etc. My office now has a staff. I have a staff of 13, and we've been, many of them, the bulk of the office staff are really policy people, and we have been working with the regulators to ensure that their processes are fair, open, transparent, objective, and that they're giving answers in a timely fashion to individuals. We know that 3/4 of immigrant professionals do not find suitable jobs in their field. They have to work in jobs of lesser scale at much higher wages. The result is an estimated loss of more than $1 billion to the provincial economy. Furthermore, and I'll quote the conference board again, they estimate that the loss to the Canadian economy because of the underemployment of newcomers is between $4 billion to $6 billion annually. So we oversee these 40 regulated professions, and 22, beginning of the year, they've added 22 compulsory trades. So your electrician and etc. are added to, the 22 trades are under one college, called the College of Trades. We want to ensure that their licensing practices are transparent, objective, impartial, and fair. We point out commendable things they are doing. We comment on what needs to be changed. We make recommendations for improvement. We want faster and fairer licensing for new entrants to professions and trades. So our goal is really to remove systemic barriers so that internationally educated professionals can have their credentials and experience recognized. I have no mandate whatsoever to deal one-on-one with individuals. So in other words, you cannot pick up all of your documents and come see me and say, I'm a doctor, get me in there. I have no mandate whatsoever to read and credentials and to pronounce on credentials. I have no mandate to pick up the phone and say, college of whatever, we have Mr. So-and-so here and I think he needs to be. So sometimes it's disappointing for individuals who really want me to go to bat for them. But my job is to create systemic change. So when I ask where are people coming from into the profession, I see the same as you have here in Peterborough. They're coming to us from India, from the Philippines, from the US, from China, from the UK. The next 5 are Pakistan, Australia, Iran, Saudi Arabia, and Nigeria. And we were at the point where we say the professionals in Ontario have to do a better job of accommodating diverse immigrants because our economy needs them to expand. And so we make recommendations. We support bridging programs. We support you on the ground who are doing whatever to ensure that individuals get the information that they need in order to apply. And more recently, we've gotten the Human Rights Commission to agree that when a regulatory body says you have to be a person in good standing, or when the regulatory body says you have to have Canadian work experience, that is discriminatory. So that is that policy, that Canadian work experience, asked of them by employers and by regulators are really discriminatory. So we keep working, we keep moving forward on this. Our website is filled with just about all the information that you might need. And so I say to you, let's attract these newcomers to our community. Let's plan the invitation. Let's welcome them in our midst. Let's integrate their children in our schools, because we know if the children are really well settled in the schools, that the parents tend to remain in the area. Let's help them find employment. Let's be good neighbors, and they will bloom where they are planted here in Peterborough. Merci beaucoup.